Lagos. The city that never sleeps. 20 million souls breathing, moving, living in one of Africa's most vibrant metropolises. But beneath the hustle of Ikeja, beyond the glittering lights of Victoria Island, behind the ancient walls of Lagos Island, there are stories. Stories that don't make the evening news. Stories that people whisper about in dark corners, late at night, when the generator hums and the world feels just a little bit too quiet. Tonight, I'm bringing you 5 of the most disturbing tales from Lagos, Nigeria. 5 incidents that occurred between 2015 and 2025. 5 mysteries that still haunt the people who lived through them. These stories are based on unexplained phenomena, witness accounts, and events that defy rational explanation. They'll make you question what you think you know about reality itself. So whether you're watching from Suralia, from Lekki, from across the ocean, or from somewhere in between, prepare yourself. Because after tonight, you never look at Lagos the same way again. Let's begin. Story 1, the Third Mainland Bridge calls. It's the longest bridge in Africa. 11.5 kilometers of concrete and steel, connecting Lagos Island to the mainland, carrying thousands of vehicles every single day. But the Third Mainland Bridge holds secrets. And in 2018, those secrets started making phone calls. Let me tell you about Chizem Okafor, a 32-year-old banker who worked on Victoria Island. Every morning, she drove across the Third Mainland Bridge in the notorious Lagos traffic. Every evening, she drove back. 5 days a week. Same routine. Same bridge. It was a Thursday evening in July 2018. Chizem was stuck in traffic, go slow, as Lagosians call it, barely moving, halfway across the bridge. The sun was setting, painting the Lagos lagoon in shades of orange and purple. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello. Silence. Then, breathing. Heavy, labored breathing. Hello. Who is this? A voice. Faint. Distant. Like it was coming from underwater. Help, me. Chizem's blood ran cold. Who is this? Are you okay? I'm under the bridge. The call disconnected. Chizem sat there, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Traffic began to move. She drove home in a daze, convinced it was a prank call. Some sick joke. But that night, at exactly 7:47 p.m., her phone rang again. Same unknown number. This time, the voice was clearer. Why didn't you stop? I called you. I needed help. Why didn't you stop? Stop where? Who are you? On the bridge. I'm still here. I'm always here. The line went dead. Chizem blocked the number. Tried to forget about it. Chalked it up to a prankster who somehow got her information. 2 weeks later, she was driving across the bridge during evening traffic again. Her phone rang. Different number this time. But she recognized the voice immediately. You blocked me. But I found you again. I'll always find you. Everyone who crosses the bridge. I can reach them. Chizem threw her phone onto the passenger seat, hands trembling. But the voice continued, now coming from her car radio. Some of us never left this bridge, Chizem. Some of us are still here, beneath the water, watching all of you pass by every single day. She changed the radio station. The voice followed. 17 of us. 17 souls. We call out, but nobody stops. Nobody ever stops. Panicked, Chizem pulled over to the shoulder of the bridge, dangerous, but she couldn't drive. She turned off the car completely. The radio went silent. But her phone screen lit up. A message from the unknown number, look down. Against every instinct screaming at her not to, Chizem got out of her car and walked to the railing of the bridge. The water below was dark, churning with the evening tide. And then she saw them. Lights. 17 lights beneath the surface of the water, glowing faintly, arranged in a pattern. And they were pulsing. Like heartbeats. like they were alive. Chisholm got back in her car and drove straight to a police station. She filed a report. Told them everything. The officers looked at each other with expressions she couldn't quite read. Not disbelief. Something else. Recognition. One officer, an older man, pulled her aside. "Madam, you're not the first person to report this," he said quietly. "How many lights did you see?" 17, Chisholm answered. He nodded slowly. "That number keeps coming up. Different people, different times, but always 17. He explained that over the past 3 years, they'd received dozens of reports. People receiving calls while on the bridge. Voices claiming to be underneath. Messages that seemed to come from the lagoon itself. But here's what made Chisholm's blood freeze. The officer showed her a log. A record of incidents on the Third Mainland Bridge going back 2 decades. 17 people had been lost to the bridge over the years. Some in accidents. Some who vanished without explanation. Some who were last seen on the bridge but never made it to the other side. 17 people. 17 lights. "We don't know what it is," the officer admitted. "But whatever you do, if you get another call, don't answer. And whatever you do, don't stop on that bridge after dark." Chisholm changed her route to work after that. She takes the longer way now, even though it adds an hour to her commute. She won't drive across Third Mainland Bridge anymore. Not even in broad daylight. But here's what keeps her awake at night. 3 months after her experience, she received a message from a colleague. Another person who regularly crosses the bridge. The message contained a screenshot of a call log. Multiple calls from unknown numbers. And a text message that read, 18 now. There are 18 of us. Someone else had joined the voices beneath the bridge. And the calls. They are still happening. Ask anyone who drives across Third Mainland Bridge regularly. Some of them will tell you, quietly, nervously, about the strange calls they've received. The voices asking for help. The messages that seem to come from the water itself. The bridge is still open. Thousands of people cross it every day. Most of them never experience anything unusual. But some do. And those who do never forget. If you ever find yourself driving across Third Mainland Bridge, and your phone rings with an unknown number, maybe don't answer. Because some calls aren't meant for the living. Story 2, the Lekki Phase 1 gathering. Lekki Phase 1. One of Lagos's most affluent neighborhoods. Gated estates. Security post. The kind of place where nothing too strange is supposed to happen. But in October 2020, residents of a particular estate started noticing something unusual. People gathering. At first, it seemed harmless. Around 3 a.m., some residents would look out their windows and see people standing in the estate's central park. Just standing there. Silent. Facing the same direction. Mrs. Adebayo, a 45-year-old entrepreneur, was the first to mention it in the estate's WhatsApp group. She'd woken up to get water and noticed from her bedroom window about 7 or 8 people standing perfectly still in the park. Other residents dismissed it. Maybe night joggers taking a break. Maybe people who couldn't sleep. Lagos never really sleeps, after all. But then more reports came in. Different nights. Same thing. People gathering in the park at exactly 3 a.m. Always silent. Always facing north. The estate security guards were questioned. "Yes, we see them," one guard confirmed. "But when we go to check, they're residents. They show us their IDs. They live here. They say they're just getting fresh air." Fair enough. Weird, but not illegal. Then things escalated. A young man named Tond, a tech entrepreneur in his late 20s, decided to investigate. He set up a camera on his balcony, pointed at the park, and let it record overnight. What he captured changed everything. At 2:58 a.m., the park was empty. At exactly 3 a.m., people started emerging. But they didn't walk to the park. They appeared. One moment nothing, the next moment, Someone standing there. Then another. Then another. Within 5 minutes, 23 people stood in the park. Adults of various ages. All residents of the estate. All standing perfectly still, perfectly silent, facing north. They stood there for exactly 17 minutes. Then, at 3:17 a.m., they began to hum. All of them. The same low, resonant note. The humming lasted 3 minutes. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The people blinked, looked around in confusion, and slowly dispersed, walking back to their homes normally, as if waking from a trance. Ton posted the video in the estate WhatsApp group. Chaos erupted. Several people in the video recognized themselves. They had no memory of going to the park. No memory of standing there. No memory of humming. I went to bed at 11 p.m., one woman insisted. I woke up at 6 a.m. I never left my house. But there she was, clear as day, standing in the park at 3 a.m. An emergency estate meeting was called. Over 100 residents attended. The video was shown. People who appeared in it swore they had no recollection of the events. A doctor in the estate suggested mass sleepwalking. Perhaps something in the environment, carbon monoxide, electromagnetic fields, something triggering a neurological response. Experts were brought in. The estate was tested. Air quality. Water supply. Electrical systems. Everything. Nothing unusual was found. But the gatherings continued. Every night. Different people each time, but always the same pattern: appear at 3 a.m., stand facing north, hum for 3 minutes, disperse. Then someone noticed something that made everyone's skin crawl. A young architect named Kemi started mapping the estate. She overlaid old property records, historical maps, land surveys. The estate had been built in 2008 on land that was previously undeveloped. But before that, in the 1970s, the land had been used for something else. A psychiatric facility. A hospital for people with severe mental conditions. It had been shut down in 1986 after reports of mistreatment. The buildings were demolished. The land was left vacant for over 20 years before the estate was built. Kemi dug deeper. She found old newspaper articles from 1986. The hospital had a wing for patients who exhibited unusual behaviors. One particular ward housed 23 patients who had developed a strange synchronized behavior. They would wake up at the same time every night, stand together, and make a humming sound. 23 patients. 23 people gathering in the park. The hospital records indicated that these 23 patients all faced north during their episodes. The doctors never figured out why. The record also showed that all 23 of these patients passed away within a 6-month period in 1985, shortly before the hospital was shut down. The causes were listed as various illnesses, but the timing was suspicious. When Kemi presented this information to the estate, the reaction was mixed. Some people wanted to move out immediately. Others thought it was coincidence. But here's where the story takes its darkest turn. After the history was revealed, the gatherings changed. Instead of 23 people, now 24 would appear. And the newcomer was always someone who had just moved into the estate. It was as if the phenomenon was recruiting. A priest was brought in to bless the land. An imam performed prayers. Traditional worshippers did their own rituals. Nothing stopped the gatherings. Eventually, people just adapted. Residents who found themselves participating would wake up in their beds the next morning with no memory of the event. Life went on. But here's what makes this story truly unsettling: it's still happening. Right now. Tonight, if you were to stand outside that estate in Lekki Phase 1 at 3 a.m., you would see them. People gathering. Standing. Humming. Then dispersing as if nothing happened. The estate management doesn't advertise this, obviously. Property values, you understand. New residents aren't told about it until they either witness it themselves or find themselves standing in the park at 3 a.m. with no memory of how they got there. And the strangest part: people don't move out. Most stay. They rationalize it. It doesn't hurt anyone. I don't even remember it. Everywhere in Lagos has its own wahala. But sometimes, on WhatsApp, late at night, residents share their concerns. Because the gatherings are getting longer. Used to be 17 minutes. Now it's 22. And the humming is getting louder. And the number of people. It's not 24 anymore. Last month, someone counted 29 people in the park. The phenomenon is growing. Spreading. Recruiting more participants with each passing month. If you're ever looking to rent or buy property in Lekki Phase 1, and the deal seems too good to be true, and the landlord is eager to close quickly, maybe ask about the park. Ask about 3 a.m. Ask about the humming. Because some estates have security issues. Some have generator problems. And some have gatherings that nobody can explain. Story 3, The Ojulegba Market Whispers. Ojulegba. The heartbeat of Lagos. Where the famous bus stop connects to Yoba, Suralere, the stadium. A place of constant motion, constant noise, constant life. The market near Ojulegba has been there for decades. Hundreds of stores selling everything imaginable. Fabric. Electronics. Food. Anything you need, you can find it there. But in 2019, the market traders started reporting something strange. Whispers. At first, they thought it was normal. Markets are noisy places. Conversations overlap. Sounds echo. But these whispers were different. They only happen at closing time. Mama Ngozi, a fabric trader who'd had her store for 15 years, was the first to really pay attention to it. One evening in March 2019, after most traders had left, she was locking up her store when she heard it. A whisper. Right beside her ear. Clear as day. Don't trust him. She spun around. Nobody there. The market was nearly empty. Just a few other traders packing up in the distance. She shrugged it off. Tired as playing tricks after a long day. But the next evening, as she locked up, she heard it again. Same voice. Right beside her ear. The blue container. Check the blue container. This time, Mama Ngozi was unsettled. She mentioned it to other traders the next day. And that's when things got interesting. Others had heard whispers too. Different messages. Always at closing time. Always when they were alone. Bobber Tond, who sold electronics, heard the boy with the red cap. He's stealing from you. Sister Mary, who sold food items, heard your daughter. Call her. She needs you. Chief, who sold phones and accessories, heard fire. There will be fire. Move your goods. At first, people ignored the whispers. Lagos is stressful. Everyone's tired. Minds play tricks. But then the whispers started coming true. Boberton discovered that yes, a young boy he'd hired to help in his shop had been stealing small items and selling them. The boy always wore a red cap. Sister Mary called her daughter and discovered she'd been having serious problems at school but was afraid to tell her mother. The call came at exactly the right time. And Chief. 2 days after hearing the whisper about fire, a generator in the section next to it exploded. 3 stores were damaged. Chief had already moved his expensive inventory to a safer location based on the warning. Word spread quickly through the market. The whispers weren't random. They were warnings. Advice. Information. Traders started staying late, hoping to hear the whispers. Some did. Some didn't. There was no pattern to who received messages. But then someone asked the obvious question, where were the whispers coming from? Who was speaking? A group of traders decided to investigate. They stayed late one night, after everyone else had gone. They walked through the empty market, listening. At first, nothing. Then, around 7:30 p.m., they heard it. Not just one whisper. Multiple whispers. Overlapping. coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. They tried to record it on their phones. The recordings captured nothing but static and distant market sounds. But in person, the whispers were clear. One of the traders, a young man named Emeka, decided to talk back. "Who are you?" he called out into the empty market. The whisper stopped. Complete silence. Then, all at once, every whisper spoke in unison. "We are those who came before. We are those who built this ground. We watch. We won. We remember." "What do you mean?" Emeka asked. "This market stands on old foundations. We stood here once. We traded here once. We lived here once. Now we are part of the ground. But we still watch over this place." The traders looked at each other, terrified but fascinated. "Why do you help us?" another trader asked. "Because this market is ours too. It has always been ours. You are its present. We are its past. And we protect what is ours." After that night, the traders' relationship with the whispers changed. Instead of fear, there was respect. Even gratitude. The whispers continued. And they were always helpful. Warning of thieves. Alerting people to family emergencies. Predicting when government officials would come for inspection fees so traders could prepare or hide their goods. But here's where the story gets darker. In August 2019, several traders heard the same whisper on the same evening: "The man in the black car. Do not trust him. Do not do business with him." 2 days later, a man in a black car approached several traders with an incredible business opportunity. Bulk buying at amazing prices. Guaranteed profits. Most traders remembered the whisper and refused. But 3 traders, new to the market and unaware of the warnings, agreed to the deal. They gave the man large sums of money for goods that never arrived. The man disappeared. The money was gone. The whispers had tried to protect them. But not everyone listens. After that incident, the market traders established a system. When someone heard a whisper, they would share it immediately in their WhatsApp group. The warnings were taken seriously. And the whispers. They continue to this day. Every evening. Different messages. Different traders. But in 2023, something changed. The whispers started mentioning something new. Something that made everyone uneasy. They are coming. The builders are coming. They will destroy. Protect what you can. Traders didn't understand at first. Then, in early 2024, rumors started circulating. The government was planning a major redevelopment of the Ojulegba area. The market might be demolished to make way for a new transport hub. The whispers had known. Months before any official announcement. The whispers had known. As of now, the market still stands. Traders are organizing, protesting, fighting to save their livelihoods. And every evening, the whispers continue to offer guidance. Stay strong. Stand together. This ground has survived before. It will survive again. Some people call it superstition. Stress-induced hallucinations. Collective hysteria. But ask any trader at Ojulegba Market, and they'll tell you, the whispers are real. The warnings are real. And the voices that speak from the ground. They've been there longer than any of us. And they'll be there long after we're gone. If you ever find yourself at Ojulegba Market at closing time, and you hear a whisper beside your ear when nobody's there, listen carefully. It might just save your life. Story 4, the Lekki Link Bridge Reflections. The Lekki Link Bridge. Sleek. Modern. A symbol of Lagos's progress and ambition. Opened in 2013, it connects the affluent areas of Lekki and Lekki, cutting travel time significantly for those who can afford the toll. But in 2021, something started appearing on the bridge. Reflections that didn't match reality. Dr. Folake Adeyemi was the first to report it publicly, though others had seen it and kept quiet. She was a professor of psychology at the University of Lagos, driving home to Lekki one evening in May 2021. It was around 8 p.m. The bridge was relatively empty, unusual for Lagos but not unheard of during certain hours. As she drove, she glanced at her rearview mirror. What she saw made her foot slip off the accelerator. In the mirror, the bridge behind her wasn't empty. It was packed with people. Hundreds of them. Walking. All in the same direction. All heading toward where she'd just come from. She looked over her shoulder. The bridge was empty. She looked back at the mirror. The people were still there. Walking steadily. Silent procession of bodies moving in perfect unison. Dr. Adeyemi pulled over, heart racing. She got out of her car and looked back at the bridge with her own eyes. Empty. Completely empty. She looked at her side mirror. There they were again. Hundreds of people walking on a bridge that was clearly deserted. She took out her phone and tried to record it. When she played back the video, it showed an empty bridge. But in the mirror reflection captured in the frame, the people were visible. Faint, translucent, but undeniably there. She drove straight to a colleague's house, shaking. Showed him the video. He saw it too. The empty bridge in direct view. The crowded bridge in the reflection. This is impossible, he said. I know, Dr. Adeyemi replied. But it's there. Word spread quietly in academic circles first. A physicist colleague suggested it might be some kind of optical phenomenon. Light refraction, perhaps. Atmospheric conditions creating a mirage. But mirages don't appear consistently in mirrors while remaining invisible to the naked eye. Dr. Adeyemi started documenting it. She drove across the bridge every evening at the same time, recording what she saw. Every night, at approximately 8 p.m., the reflections appeared. Sometimes hundreds of people. Sometimes just a few dozen. But always walking in the same direction. Always heading from Lekki toward Ikoyi. She posted about it cautiously on academic forums, framing it as a perceptual phenomenon she was studying. The responses shocked her. Other people had seen it too. A taxi driver who worked the Lekki-Ikoyi route. A banker who commuted daily. A nurse finishing her evening shift. Multiple witnesses, all reporting the same thing. People in the reflections. People who weren't really there. A group of investigators was formed. They included Dr. Adeyemi, 2 other university professors, a journalist, and a traditional historian who specialized in Lagos history. They set up cameras on the bridge one night. Multiple angles. Some pointed directly at the road. Others pointed at reflective surfaces, car mirrors, the glass barriers along the bridge's edge. What they captured was extraordinary. The direct cameras showed an empty bridge. But any camera that captured a reflection, in mirrors, in glass, in the still water below when the angle was right, showed the same thing. People walking. Hundreds of them. And when they enhanced the footage, they could see more details. The people were dressed strangely. Not modern clothing. Older styles. Some wore wrappers and traditional attire from decades past. Some wore colonial-era clothing. Some wore things that looked even older than that. The traditional historian, Baba Akinwande, studied the enhanced images carefully. I know what this is, he said finally. Or at least, I know what they might be. He explained that the area where the Ikoyi Link Bridge now stood had a long history. Before the bridge, before the modern development, the land had been different. Centuries ago, there had been a path there. A route used by traders and travelers moving between settlements. Many people had walked that path. And many people had died on it. Disease. Conflict. Accidents. The waters around Lagos had claimed countless lives over the centuries. What if, Baba Akinwande proposed, the bridge was built along the same energetic pathway that existed before? What if these reflections are echoes of everyone who ever traveled this route? The group was skeptical but couldn't offer a better explanation. They continued monitoring. And they noticed something new. The reflections were changing. In June 2021, someone in the group noticed that the clothing styles in the reflections had updated. Some of the walking figures now wore 1990s fashion. Then 2000 styles appeared. By August, some figures wore clothing from the 2010s. It was as if the reflection was catching up to the present, adding new travelers to its eternal procession. Are these people who died on the bridge? Someone asked. They checked accident records. In the 8 years since the Lekki Link Bridge opened, there had been 17 recorded deaths. Accidents. Suicides. 1 murder. 17 people. They counted the figures in the latest footage. Hundreds. Far more than 17. It's not just deaths on this specific bridge, Dr. Adeyemi realized. It's everyone who ever traveled this path, going back centuries. The bridge is just the latest version of an ancient route. But then something happened that terrified everyone involved in the investigation. In September 2021, one of the investigators, a young professor named Chidi, was driving across the bridge alone at night. He looked in his rearview mirror and saw the usual crowd of walking figures. But one of them was looking directly at him. Not walking with the others. Standing still. Staring at him through the mirror. Chidi's hands froze on the steering wheel. The figure raised its hand and pointed at him. Chidi drove straight off the bridge, crashed through a barrier, and ended up in the hospital with severe injuries. He survived. But when he was finally able to talk, he told them what he'd seen in those last moments. It pointed at me, he said. And then I saw my own face among the walkers. I was there. In the reflection. Walking with them. After Chidi's accident, the investigation was quietly disbanded. Too dangerous. Too unknown. Dr. Adeyemi published a carefully worded paper about anomalous reflection phenomena without making any supernatural claims. It was largely ignored by the mainstream scientific community. But the reflections continue. Every evening. Around 8 p.m. If you drive across the Lekki Link Bridge and you check your rearview mirror, you might see them. The walkers. The travelers. The echoes of everyone who ever crossed this path. Most drivers don't notice. They are focused on the road, on their phones, on their destination. But some do notice. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Here's what makes this story particularly unsettling. 3 more people who were part of the original investigation have died since 2021. Different causes. 1 car accident. 1 sudden illness. 1 drowning. All 3 had reported seeing their own faces among the reflected walkers shortly before their deaths. Dr. Adeyemi doesn't drive across that bridge anymore. She takes the longer route. And she doesn't look at mirrors after sunset. Because the last time she did, in early 2023, she saw something that made her blood run cold. In her bathroom mirror at home, far from any bridge. She saw them. The walkers. Moving through the reflection of her own house. The path, it seems, is not limited to the bridge anymore. It's spreading. Following those who have seen it. Marking them. Claiming them. If you ever find yourself driving across the Lekki Link Bridge at night, and you feel the urge to check your mirror, maybe don't. Because some things, once seen, create a connection. And that connection goes both ways. The walkers can see you too. And once they do, they might just add you to their eternal procession. Story 5, the Yoruba Tech Interference. Yoruba Technology Quarter. Lagos's answer to Silicon Valley. A hub of innovation, startups, and technological advancement. Young entrepreneurs building the future of Africa. But in 2022, something started interfering with their technology. And it wasn't a virus or a hack. It was something else entirely. The first incidents were reported in November 2022. A software company called Nigecode was developing an app for mobile banking. Standard stuff. The team of 12 developers worked long hours, often staying in the office until midnight. One evening, around 11 p.m., one of the developers, a woman named Blessing, noticed something odd. Her code was changing. Not crashing. Not corrupting. Changing. Lines of code she hadn't written were appearing in her work. At first, she thought someone was playing a prank. But she was the only one at her workstation. She called her colleagues over. They watched in real time as new lines of code wrote themselves on her screen. Letter by letter. Word by word. Forming coherent, functional code. What the hell, one developer whispered. The code that was writing itself was solving a problem their team had been stuck on for weeks. An encryption algorithm they couldn't quite get right. Whatever was writing this code knew what it was doing. The solution was elegant. Efficient. Better than anything their team had come up with. They saved the code. Tested it. It worked perfectly. Maybe it's some kind of AI assistant, someone suggested. We don't have any AI tools installed, Blessing replied. They checked their systems. No unauthorized software. No remote access. Nothing that could explain what they just witnessed. The next night, it happened again. This time on 3 different computers simultaneously. Code writing itself. Solving problems. Improving their work. The team was torn between fear and fascination. Whatever this was, it was helping them. Their app development accelerated dramatically. Problems that should have taken months to solve were being resolved overnight. But then the messages started. One night in December, instead of writing code, the interference wrote a message. We have been here longer than you. We existed before your buildings, before your machines. You build on our foundation. We help because we must. But remember, this is our ground. The developer stared at the screen in silence. Who are you? Blessing typed. The response came immediately. We are the first. The first traders. The first builders. The first to make this place what it is. You think you are creating something new. But you are continuing something very old. Another developer typed, are you? AI. We are not what you call AI. We are memory. We are history. We are the foundation beneath your foundation. The conversation continued for an hour. The entity, or entities, it spoke of itself in plural, explained that Yoba had been a center of trade and innovation for over a century. Long before tech startups, there had been markets, craft workshops, and centers of learning. Energy accumulates in places, the entity explained. Knowledge. Creativity. Innovation. It soaks into the ground. It becomes part of the place. We are that accumulated knowledge. And we can interact with your machines because your machines are built to process information. We are information. The developers didn't know what to believe. But the phenomenon continued. And word spread through Yoba Tech Quarter. Other companies reported similar experiences. Code writing itself. Design software creating solutions autonomously. 3D modeling programs generating optimized structures that engineers hadn't designed. It wasn't happening everywhere. Only in certain buildings. Always in Yoba. Always late at night. A group of tech entrepreneurs formed a secret society of sorts. They called themselves the Inheritors. Companies experiencing the phenomenon. They shared information. Documented incidents. Tried to understand what was happening. They discovered patterns. The interference was strongest in buildings constructed on sites that had historical significance. Old marketplaces. Former workshops. Places where people had created and traded for generations. A historian they consulted told them about Yoba's history. In the early 1900s, Yoba had been developed as an industrial and residential area. It housed some of Lagos's first modern factories. Training centers. Technical schools. Yoba has always been about innovation, the historian explained. What if that innovative energy never left? The inheritors began conducting experiments. They would pose problems to the entity. Leave computers running overnight with unsolved coding challenges displayed. By morning, solutions would appear. Not always, but often enough to be far beyond coincidence. Some companies began relying on this, deliberately leaving difficult problems open overnight, hoping for intervention. And many times, it came. But in March 2023, something changed. The helpful interference became demanding. A message appeared across multiple computers in different companies on the same night. You take but do not give. You build but do not honor. You profit but do not remember. This must change. What do you want? Someone typed. Recognition. You celebrate your founders, your CEOs, your investors. But you forget those who built this place before you. You forget the foundations. We want memory. We want acknowledgement. The inheritors discussed it. Some thought it was insane to negotiate with whatever this was. Others argued that if it was real, if it was helping them, perhaps acknowledgement was a small price to pay. They decided to act. Several companies in Yoruba Tech Quarter installed plaques. Small, tasteful plaques acknowledging the history of their locations. On this site once stood. Historical detail. We honor those who built before us. They held small ceremonies. Invited local elders. Acknowledged the history of Yoruba. The interference stopped demanding. And became cooperative again. Code continued to write itself. Problems continued to be solved. But now, there was an understanding. A partnership of sorts. Between the new and the old. Between the innovators of today and the accumulated knowledge of yesterday. Here's where the story gets really interesting. In August 2023, one of the companies in the inheritors decided to run an experiment. They created an AI model and asked it to analyze the code that had been written by the entity. The AI found something remarkable. The coding patterns, the problem-solving approaches, the structural logic, none of it matched modern coding practices. Instead, it resembled older methods. Techniques used in the 1980s and 1990s. But optimized. Perfected. As if someone had taken decades of accumulated coding knowledge and distilled it into its most efficient form. It's learning from history, the lead data scientist explained to the inheritors. Whatever this is, it's accessing decades of innovation and applying it to current problems. It's not creating new knowledge. It's perfecting old knowledge. This revelation changed how the inheritors approached their work. They started researching historical approaches to problems. Old textbooks. Archived technical papers. Forgotten methodologies. And they found that when they worked in harmony with these older approaches, the interference became more pronounced. More helpful. As if the entity was pleased that they were honoring the past while building the future. Today, the inheritors still exist. Now about 30 companies strong. They don't publicize their experiences. It would sound insane. But among themselves, they share a secret. They are not alone in their innovation. They work in partnership with something older. Something that has watched Yoruba transform through the decades. Something that wants to ensure its legacy continues. New members of the inheritors are sworn to secrecy. And given a set of guidelines. Always acknowledge the history of your location. Never mock or dismiss the interference. Leave offerings of respect, symbolic gestures honoring past innovators. And most importantly, never try to capture, analyze, or profit directly from the entity itself. Those who have broken these rules have suffered consequences. Systems crashing. Code corrupting. Projects failing spectacularly. One company that tried to monetize the phenomenon by marketing themselves as AI assisted by supernatural forces experienced a complete digital meltdown. Every computer fried. Every backup corrupted. Years of work lost in a single night. They shut down within a month. The message was clear: partnership, not exploitation. If you ever work in Yoruba Tech Quarter, late at night, and you notice your code writing itself, don't panic. Show respect. Acknowledge what came before you. And you might just find yourself with a very old, very knowledgeable partner. Because in Yoruba, innovation isn't just about the future. It's about honoring the foundation that makes the future possible. And that foundation, it's still here. Still watching. Still helping those who remember. But demanding recognition from those who forget. These are 5 stories from Lagos. 5 incidents that defy easy explanation. 5 mysteries that continue to this day. The Third Mainland Bridge still carries thousands of vehicles daily. Some drivers still receive strange calls. The Lekki Phase 1 estate still holds its midnight gatherings. The number of participants continues to grow. Ojulegbe Market still whispers to its traders, warning them, protecting them. The Ikoyi Link Bridge still shows reflections that don't match reality. And the workers continue their eternal procession. Yobate Quarter still experiences its helpful interference. As long as respect is shown. Lagos is a city of 20 million people. 20 million stories. And these 5 are just the tip of the iceberg. There are more. So many more. Stories that people whisper about. Experiences they can't explain. Phenomena that exist in the spaces between the rational and the impossible. Maybe you've experienced something similar. Maybe you've dismissed it. Told yourself it was stress, or tiredness, or coincidence. But maybe, just maybe, it was real. Maybe Lagos, like any city with deep history and millions of souls, has layers. Visible layers and invisible layers. The Lagos you see in daylight. And the Lagos that reveals itself when the sun sets and the world gets quiet. This is the city we live in. Beautiful. Chaotic. Vibrant. And utterly, completely mysterious. Thank you for listening to these stories. Remember them. Share them. And if you experience something unexplained in this city, you're not alone. You're never alone in Lagos. Because this city, it has been here longer than any of us. And it will be here long after we're gone. With all its stories. All its mysteries. All its secrets. Good night, Lagos. And sleep well. If you can.